Hey guys, so welcome to Real Talk with Kelsey. This is part 2 of episode 2 being on relationships. And I had a couple of people who were interested in what I said last time about bringing my husband, Erick Reyna, on and getting his perspective of a guy's view of the questions that I was asked. So I'm going to go ahead and ask him the same questions that I was asked, but this time he will be primarily answering them. I might put a little bit of input in here and there, but his voice will be the one that's being heard today. And we will be talking about a guy's view on relationships and how to handle them. So the first question was, what would you tell a young man who wants a girlfriend?
Who wants a girlfriend? All right. My first thing would be, don't be in a rush. And just because everybody else is having boyfriend and girlfriends, that does not mean you have to jump into that. I wasn't allowed to date until I was 18, so I did wait. And I'm so glad I did. But I also approach everything since a young age as a Christian and like not wanting to waste my time in a way. Like I've always looked at it as, is that somebody that I'm gonna marry? And I didn't want to waste my time and just date to date. I think both of us always dated with intention, and but you don't have to rush. And as a young man, you're growing. But I would take it at this angle as, are you growing in a way to be the man that your wife is looking for? And I liked how you said that last time. Are you growing and being the person that your spouse is praying for?
Mm-hmm. And that comes into a different question. So
Yeah, but like that's what you're doing at a young age. Your teen years, you're growing, you're maturing, you're growing up. So I would take those years as like preparing yourself to be the husband eventually that God's calling you to be. But there's nothing wrong with wanting to date. I wasn't allowed to date until I was 18, and I waited. I was not in a rush. Like you're so young still too. It's like you don't have to rush into that season yet. You're growing, and I just take those years of knowing God, knowing the Lord, and building that relationship first. Because if you're going to lead your family, know that relationship first, know God first.
And in no way is he saying that if you're 12 years old, you should be already thinking about
Yeah.
all of that. You're still young. You're probably not even sure if you like girls yet.
Yeah.
But for older
Mm-hmm.
teens,
Yeah.
that's kind of what he's
Yeah.
talking about.
I have a niece that's 13. I've seen kids. I've done a lot of youth teens, and you see that at a young age, like trying to go. It doesn't. I've seen it my whole life, being involved in church too, and just growing up as well. Like you don't have to rush to that season. Enjoy where you're at right now. Like, I know the world tells you have to get there so quickly. You don't have to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so the second question is, what did you do in the waiting
Mm-hmm.
for being with someone?
Um. Honestly, like I said, I started a relationship with Jesus first, and during that season of waiting, are you talking about waiting for us?
Waiting for your
Oh yeah.
future someone, yes.
So there was I came out of a season before I met Kelsey, or before we started dating, where I came out of a relationship. And coming out of that, I told God, all right, God, I'm not going to be out there looking for every girl and trying to get married so quickly. I want to take this season and know you deeper. And that's what I did until we started talking. And I came out of that relationship. There was a 5-year gap between our last relationship and us. And I took those years of, I'm going to be busy about my assignment, busy about what you're calling me to do. And I know that you're going to bring the right person while I'm in my assignment, while I'm doing what you're called me to do. And I gave it to God. I was like, all right, God, I'm not going to be trying to do this on my own. I want the perfect person. I want who you call to be my wife. And I gave that care to God. I casted that care. Like, God, I give this to you because I missed on my own. I had 2 previous relationships. I missed there. So I'm like, all right, God, I don't want to do this on my own. I want who you call to be my wife. And I didn't want to waste no more time. As a guy, you're like, I'm not wasting my time, I'm not wasting my money, I'm not wasting my energy. And I wanted what God had for me. So I gave that to God. And I think that's what we have to do as people. Like, I'm giving God this area, and I'm not just gonna try to do this to satisfy my flesh. I'm gonna, all right, God, I want you involved in this area of my life. I want the one you've called to be my spouse. I want the one that you have put on this earth to be my spouse. I'm gonna get you involved in this area of my life, and I want everything that you've called for me to do. And I know that when I'm involved in what you're calling me to do, you'll bring the right person my way.
So in the season of waiting, what did you do though? Like besides giving it to God, like what did you physically, like where did you put yourself?
I put myself in a spot where I grew spiritually. I grew as a man. Like, I like what you said last time. Like, are you preparing yourself for the one that your spouse is praying for? I got myself in that position. I got in a deeper relationship with knowing God. I put myself out there as far as like, I'm gonna start doing what God's called me to do. And honestly, it was that simple for me. I want to be about all your business. I'm gonna do everything you called me to do. I'm gonna get busy in the ministry. I'm gonna get busy in the assignment you called me to do. I know that while I'm busy about your business, about your business, you're gonna be busy about my business. And how we started texting, we started getting our relationship going, and before you know, we're married. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking about that the other day, like how easy it was, how our relationship started. I didn't have to. It wasn't. It was effortless, I feel. And when it's God, when you let God get involved, I believe it's easy. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what that kind of leads into the next question. In a short version, what was your like version, version of how we met? Well, besides like what they already know, which is our families have known each other their our whole lives, like from when we first like caught each other's attention again.
So I knew she was in town in California for her sister's wedding.
That wasn't when we first started meeting, though. That was in New York.
Yeah, so New York was 2014. I seen her and her sisters were already in the room where all of our staff was meeting. And I walked in like, that's Kelsey? Like, I've only known you as a little girl. First time seeing you as an adult. I'm like, oh my gosh. You caught my eye instantly. You and your sisters did worship that morning. And I was taking videos and pictures. I'm like, you had my full attention. And
he does not mean that in as creepy as it might sound.
Well, I'm taking pictures I'm capturing the whole event. So
it was for the event. It wasn't just him like following me with a camera.
So that whole weekend, our family did ministry together. And knowing her family, her dad has always come back to California, being friends with her dad. So I was like nervous the whole weekend you're there around. Mm-hmm. I was probably awkward as well. But you definitely caught my eye that weekend. And we started texting from there until like 2017. Then I've always had my eye on you, but see your social media and there's always something there in 2017. Then that stopped for a few years, and then a few years later, so it's been like 2 years now. And I knew that you were coming out of a relationship, so I was like, I'm gonna be patient.
Yeah, because that was in 2021. Yeah, so it was about 4 years.
Yeah, 3 or 4 years ago. Yeah. So then when we started texting again, I threw it out there like, hey, like I
still like you.
I still like you. And we were already kind of texting and messaging each other. I threw that out there, and I was like, I want to pursue you. Mm-hmm. And we started from there. Then we haven't stopped. But
and what like to go into that? Like I told you that because I was still in my season of healing and waiting and just knowing what God had for me. So when I told you like, we can get to know each other better. Like I want you to pursue me, but you can't date me. Yeah. What went through your head when I said
know,
that?
As a guy, you could take that as like, oh, like that's so hard. Like I don't want to do that. And I just took it as like, okay, I'll be patient.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't bother me at all. And the Lord told me, be patient.
Mm-hmm.
Like, don't rush her. And if you're gonna love somebody, you gotta, like, I from that moment, I'm like, okay, I'll treat her how she needs to be treated, as somebody that's loved and valued, and if that's one of her requests, honor it.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to make sure I honored you from day one of like, hey, that's what her role is right now. I'm gonna honor that, and I'm not gonna try to rush it. And if this is God, it'll be God today, it'll be God tomorrow. And I respected that. And even towards the end of like the courtship, I was like, it was very hard to respect that, but I was like, I'm gonna respect this because.
But that, I feel like that's so important. That's something that I'll say a little bit about is, if you believe that this is the right person, that this is the person that you want to be with, every single person is entitled to boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
to things that they believe are deal or no deal. Like, if you break that, you're going to end up losing this person. You are allowed to have boundaries. You are allowed to have boundaries in a relationship. You are allowed to have boundaries in every form of relationships, whether it's friendships, family, and romantic. But that meant so much to me, because coming from a relationship where every single boundary that I had been broken, that it was broken, like broken promises, broken boundaries, broken things. Someone who was like, as silly as that sounds, like to anybody else, like, okay, seriously, you're gonna make him wait the 3 months till it's a year? Yeah. And you know what? He respected that. Like, he was 100. He was like, I guarantee you, when he read that, he laughed.
Yeah.
He was like, okay, because I know how he is, and I know he probably was like, that's 3 months. Okay, yeah, sure, yeah. Like, I'll do it. Like, but to a young woman or to a young man who is healing from something and trying for the first time to enter into a new relationship, especially one that you think and that you believe is going to become very serious, that, to me, you respecting that silly small boundary that I had set was showing me that even in like the bigger issues, in bigger trials, when I came up with, like, when triggers and certain things started to come up, I knew you were going to respect me and like respect my like, if I told you to no or stop, or if I didn't want to do something, or if I didn't want to go somewhere, I immediately already knew, because of that one silly okay, yeah, that's fine, I'll wait the 3 months. I knew that I'm like, okay, he's going to respect me. He's going to accept my silly little conditions and things that I'm going through.
But even from September, August until that following, almost a full year, it was a full year. Because when you were in California, I asked you for coffee, out for coffee. Even that.
And I said no.
Like, respecting like her boundary, because I knew that she needed a season of healing still. And I wasn't going to rush that either.
In his defense, like, that was literally a week. I had exited that past relationship.
I didn't know that either.
He didn't know that. And so, even more so, like, he didn't know that I had literally just exited that relationship and went to California for my little sister's wedding, while still very fresh in the new healing process that I was in. And for that to turn into like me telling you, no, I'm sorry, I'm not there yet. Like, I appreciate it, but I'm gonna have to take a rain check. And for you to still be willing to talk, like, some guys would have heard them like, well, fine, I'm never asking you out again. Like, just taking that as
but
like
we slowly were
rejection.
Texting more and more throughout that several months. But even that, I knew, like, the Lord told me from that moment, be patient with her. And I knew, like, she's fragile right now. You can't rush her and try to get what you want when she's not available to give what she wants right now either. So, and I just knew from the day one, don't rush this. And it's going to be worth the wait, because, I mean, I just knew, like, don't rush it.
And I'll say that about every any relationship, whether you just broke up and you're entering a new relationship, or if it's been 5 years of just being patient and knowing that God's going to bring the right person. If it's been 10 years, if it's been 20 years, like, if you've never had a boyfriend or girlfriend before, like, it doesn't matter what type of like level of new this relationship is, or if you've been in a relationship in the past, like, take your time.
Yeah.
Don't rush into things just because you think that, like, for me, I had like this biological time clock in my head where I was like, when I remember being 18 years old and being like, I want to be married by the time I'm 23. I want to have all of my kids before I turn 30. I want to like be growing and like be living in my beautiful home on my land with my husband by the time I am 35. Like, I had this biological time clock that I had created. And then I look back at that and I'm just like, that was so silly. Like, there was no need for that, because here I am. I got married to the love of my life at 29 years old. We're probably not going to end up having our first child until I'm in my 30s. Like, it's like God was like listening to me. Listen, this is going to happen, and then this is going to happen, and He's like, sure.
Yeah.
If you want to think that to make yourself feel better, you go for it. And even in the last relationship that I was in, that still wouldn't have been true.
Mm-hmm.
None of that timeline lined up with anything that I tried to make happen on my own. And it wasn't until I became obedient and was like, okay, God, you know what? Like, I'm giving all of this to you. Like, I don't want to be in control anymore. And we both, when we entered that part where we were just like, God, you're in control. You're going to bring the right person. You're going to bring the right relationship. And it's going to be effortless because it's going to be your doing and not mine. That was when God brought us into each other's lives again. And it could have very well happened in 2017. But had it happened, I don't think it would have ended the way it I don't think it would have ended up where we are now.
No.
I think we would have ended up breaking up because neither of us were fully healed from what we had. Like, I wasn't where I know I wasn't where I needed to be spiritually and just like in my relationship with God and mentally. He was fresh out of a relationship. Like, he wasn't good. Like, we both still very much had trust issues. We both very much like, God allowed us to both completely and fully heal from everything that we've gone through, and then brought us back to each other.
Yeah, and it's worth being patient and just letting God bring the right person. Because, I mean, I'm 35 now. During those last 5 years, I could have easily said yes to certain relationships. Like, no, I don't want that. It's pays to be obedient and allow God to bring you the right person. It really does.
And then one of the last questions was, did you know I was the one when you met me?
Yes.
This is complete. I wanted him to share this because this is completely different from my answer. I didn't know he was the one when I first met him. He scared me.
I knew in 2017.
He did. And and so okay, so share.
So I knew in 2017, and that we both went our separate ways after I came and visited her one time.
But it was on that trip in 2017 that God showed you, like, this is your wife.
I knew that time. And so fasting forward all those years, and I wasn't holding on to that. Like, obviously she already was in a different relationship. We both moved on, and I wasn't like looking at it like, there's my wife way over there. And when we started back up again a few years ago, the Lord told me to be patient. And within that, I also knew, like, she's going to be your wife, but she needs to heal still. And I mean, I was ready to propose to you the day I she was my girlfriend. So,
and that all goes back into that waiting thing.
So
because I made him, I was like, I want to be your girlfriend. Let me be your girlfriend.
So there was, I had to let her have her full year, and I couldn't ask her to be my girlfriend until a certain date. Then she knows me as well. Like, I would have asked her to be
He wouldn't have asked me to be his girlfriend. He would have just like dropped a knee and been like, marry me. And I would have been like, hold up. Like,
so,
wait a minute.
So even that, from after date, asking her to be my girlfriend and proposing to her, she gave me a window I had to wait till.
I made you wait 6 months.
And I waited a little longer than that.
He did, and it scared me a little bit. I was like, wait, is he going to ask?
So
I'm like, it's been 6 months. Where's my ring?
So, but what was the question?
Did you know I was the one when you met me?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, very much so.
And then the last question, I saved this one for last on purpose because I want to give us the time, this last bit of time, which we've still got about like 4 or 5 minutes, that I wanted you to answer this question because knowing that you have also gone through something similar in your last relationship, which again, like we don't talk about specifics. We don't talk about like the person or who it was, but in your last relationship, the question was, so this would be for a guy, because guys go through this too.
Very much so.
There is nothing wrong with, or well, there is something wrong with it, but admitting that you are being harmed in a relationship. So the question is, from a guy's perspective, what would you tell a young man who is in a relationship with someone who is verbally abusing him or cheating on him? What would you tell him?
Run. My friend and I joke about that because we both have had situations the same, and it's
but like, do you believe, like, because there's so many people, well, they'll never do it. Like, you have those people, and there's the wrong people in your life that will tell you,
showing you their true character, as far as like, it's you're dating to marry. They're showing you now. Do you want to live with that while they're married? And when you're dating, that's your chance to leave. It's like even if you're married, that things are
technically your chance is all the way up until you say I do.
So the dating season, you're learning a person's character, and they're showing you their character. It's like, leave. So I dealt with that, and it messed me up for several years after that. But I had to heal as well. But if you're in that situation, and I would say get out of it, because you would give that, like you said too last time. I liked it. You would give that advice to somebody else, and we don't take it sometimes. And I wish I would have got out of that sooner. And I'm the one that let that go on too long, and then I had enough. And the day after that relationship ended, I had like so much weight off my shoulders. It was honestly, that first night of sleep was the best night of sleep like in a year or so. I was carrying such a weight. I couldn't sleep at night. It was just like I knew things were happening, and it was torture. And I think we stay there sometimes because you don't want to lose that person. But honestly, the best thing they can happen.
Well, and then like as a young man too, like men are given this stigma that like you got to deal with it. You got to like be the man. Like don't let, and like it can so easily, the world can so easily be like, be physical, like make her stop. And it's like, that's not the answer, but the answer is to leave. But like it creates so many, for young men, like we learned this, we took a class on young adult suicide awareness so that we could both be more aware of the things and certain triggers and certain things that are said, or even in just like normal conversation, that can be eye-opening to like, oh God, like please tell me you're not thinking of like taking your own life. And it's a whole class that shows you what to look for, so that you can help those around you. And we found out in that class that young men between the ages of 18 and I think it was like 35 are the like highest percentage of suicides in the world. It's young men that are going through that. So if you're in that type of relationship, the mind games, the amount of mental health that like goes like down the drain because of dealing with it and thinking you have to deal with it.
I know, like for myself, I never went that far thinking that, but I know why, because I had Christ in my life. But if you don't, I could see why somebody would go down that path.
Well, and granted, even if you have Christ, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're not prone to that. Because this is like we're literally the two sides of the coin. Both of us had Christ, so that's the coin. Christ is the coin. But on one side, I was in such a dark place that I did attempt to commit suicide. And he's the other side where because of Christ, he knew that he didn't, he never got there. And so it's like, I never want it to be said that like, well, just because you have Christ doesn't mean you're going to go through that, because that's not true.
For me, it was that it's like, I knew where my relationship was with Christ, and I never got that far. But like I said, if you're not,
oh my gosh, it's almost worse.
But for a dude, I think it's sometimes embarrassment. Being embarrassed, like somebody's doing something to you, and it's public, your friends know about it, everybody sees it, and it's like social media that makes it even way worse than it is, because you're like,
because they're going to put you down like, wow, he's a wimp.
I remember like that situation, I had family texting me, calling me, like, you okay, what's going on? And with that person, and it's like, no, we're fine. It's like,
and you're not.
It's like, so it was very public, and it hurt, and embarrassing. So it was, that could bring you down to a place you don't want to be in. But I would say, like, what would you say? You don't have to be in that spot.
Mm-mm.
There's a way out.
Mm-hmm.
It's just ending it. And I know sometimes you feel like I can't end it. There's so much. No, you can end it.
Yeah.
You don't have to live there.
It's easier said than done, but it needs to be done. If that's happening.
Yeah. What came from that letting go and coming out of that relationship, that whole next year was honestly, I found myself again. I became Erick again.
Same.
The day after all that ended, I bought myself a brand new Xbox, booked a trip I was living in Texas, booked a trip to California, changed my apartment right away, started like a whole new life. And that whole second year of myself in Texas was amazing. It was so much fun. And I chose, I'm going to live life and enjoy life. And that's all I've been doing ever since.
And then in my situation, my mom was the person that God used to rescue me, and my dad. Once he found out, they immediately got me out of the situation that I was in. But same thing. The minute that I exited that relationship, I became I don't even know how to, like, the holiest version of selfish that I possibly could be. Like, I found myself again. I found who I was in Christ again. I stopped quieting myself. I stopped putting myself in the corner because I didn't deserve to be doing things for Christ that other people who haven't made the mistakes I have do. Like, I found who I was again. I became happy again. And for me, I loved the year after getting out of that relationship was quite literally the best year of my life, because it was also when God brought you back, you into my life, was at the end of that year. And I was like, okay, like, when you entered my life again, that for me was when I realized, oh shoot, God, I've healed. I've healed. You brought me him, like, you brought him back. Like, he came back. And, like, even though, because in 2017 I ended it because I was scared, and
the longest flight home ever.
And that was something that Krista, my older sister, she said to me. She was like, when we first started talking, and I don't know if I've told you this before, but I was telling her, I was like, I just don't know, like, what if it's like, is this God? Like, is it, like, what am I supposed to do? Like, what do you think, Chris? And she's one of, like, between her and my mom, like, she's one of the two people that I always go to about everything. And she said these words to me, and she was like, Kel, God brought you and Erick 360. He brought him back to you, and you're questioning if it's him. Like, if it wasn't him, Erick would be gone. Like, he would have, if this wasn't meant to be, Erick would have already moved on. He would have already had a wife and probably a family by now. Like, he waited, and not specifically for you, but he waited for what he knew God had for him. And it was this version of you. Why are you questioning it? And so I was like, oh shoot, no, okay, I want this. Like, I want to do this. Like, this is God.
And when you're starting relationships out, you're like, is this the person? Is this, like, for me, it was the quickest yes ever. It really was. Like, I know that's my wife right there, clear as day. And that's what made the waiting and being patient for us to even start a relationship was so easy for me. Is because I knew instantly. I really did.
Well, and and then you go from a toxic relationship, and you know that in your next relationship, you are not going to rush into anything. Like, we just want to, like, that was that could be our motto for like our entire relationship, was just, when in God's timing, everything's going to work out anyways. We know where this is we know where this is going. We know the end game of this.
We knew that very, very early, so it was very,
it's just, let's just let God do his
thing.
And
enjoy those seasons, enjoy those moments of real life, of even singleness, enjoy it. Like, getting back to being, when I came out of the last relationship,
doing
being
what you
single,
love,
started just doing things I loved, and finding myself again, hanging out with friends I never was no longer hanging out with. And but also, like, prepare yourself for that, your spouse. Like, when you come, like, say you're in your 20s, like, get yourself to where you're ready to be in a relationship. And it's like, get a better job, nicer car, do those little things that line up. But I think just enjoying each season and allowing God, and just let God bring you the right person. That's really, like, for me, it's, people ask, like, I want to be in a relationship. Well, let God bring the right person, but get yourself ready for that too.
Well, guys, this has been Real Talk with Kelsey. It's a little bit of a longer video, but I think that
My bad.
we got some, no, it was both of us. We got some, I think those were some really great answers. And I pray that these are things that can help young men that are out there, that they can know to be patient. They can know that God's got you. Like, you don't have to worry about when they're coming. Ready yourself, become who you want to be, become who you know God wants you to be, and he'll bring the right person. And same goes with girls. If you've seen video number 1 of relationships, just dance with the Father. Follow him step by step, and he will lead you right to the right person. But I can't wait to chat with you guys again. He'll probably be back in here at some point in time, if I allow it. And we will take it from there. But I can't wait to chat with you guys again. I love you all, and this has been Real Talk with Kelsey.